I'm a scientific minded guy, but I also believe anecdote is what kind of compels more rigorous scientific discovery. So without the anecdote, and are you even gonna to test something to begin with? So when I hear the trust the science, like, anecdote's not science. It's not science, but it should be the beginning of science. The anecdote should inform where we look.
Shane, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, carnivore. I found carnivore through a long, probably close to a 10-year journey of trying to figure out how to heal my broken body. Um, and it it probably started pretty young. I used to have a lot of ear infections as a kid, and I took a lot of antibiotics young. And then growing up, I always had kind of IBS type of symptoms, and sometimes they get really bad. And we always assumed it was like some kind of lactose intolerance. And I was eating a lot of breakfast cereals in the morning, like Frosted Flakes and stuff like that, which can't be great for you. But other than that, I would eat pretty, like, we had ribs and hamburgers and chicken. And so we ate and a lot of eggs, but then a lot of the other stuff too. And, some chips on the weekends and ice cream. And so it wasn't a bad like a bad diet for a standard American diet by any means. It was a lot of whole foods my parents cooked, and I was pretty healthy for the most part. Like, even with my IBS, I was still an athlete my whole life. And then probably when I left the house, I got a pretty bad neck injury because I was just doing way too much. I was having way too much fun. I was surfing every morning. I was on the soccer team at junior college, and we were doing practice every day. And I was going to the gym, and then I started doing a judo class, and my body was just completely tired, and I fell just wrong in this judo class, and something in my neck was never the same after that. And then so that was kind of the end of my kind of athletic aspirations. And this was probably around 19 or 20 years old when this kind of happened. Um, Eventually, it kind of calmed down and got stronger, and I started surfing again. I've surfed since I was a kid, and it seemed to handle that okay. But it was always kind of something I had to try to figure out how to relieve. Took a lot of painkillers over the years, and then as I got older, it just steadily got worse, and it was like always kind of aching and numb and tingling. And I was still surfing, and in fact, I was surfing a ton. Like my whole 30s, I was surfing close to 4 hours, 5 days a week, 4 hours every time I would go out. And it was grueling. Um, but then I probably at about 38, I surfed a session, and I got to the car, and I'm sitting in the car after I dried off, and I went to go try to grab the steering wheel with my right hand, and it just feel like it wouldn't move. And I was like, oh man, I guess this has finally come to a head. I gotta figure this out. So I stopped surfing and started walking, and just trying to figure out. I knew I didn't want to get surgery. I talked to a lot of friends who had back surgeries, and almost none of them were like, yeah, it fixed it. A lot of them were like, yeah, it just changed things. Things still hurt. And so, I mean, I had two people out of like the 20 I talked to that said, yeah, it actually, I had an impingement and got it off the nerve, and I'm feeling much better now. But that was the big minority. And I had been to a pain management doc who wanted to inject my vertebrae. And when I talked, and at the time, I wasn't feeling a lot of pain as much. It was numbness and tingling and tightness. And I told him that in our follow-up appointment, and like when he was talking to me, and I really didn't know what to expect from this. And I remember before I went in, he asked me what my pain level was, and this was like right before I'm about to get injected, and it made me feel so upset, because I told him it wasn't a lot of pain at that point. It was just a lot of numbness and tingling, and kind of loss of function. I wasn't dealing with a lot of pain for whatever reason at that point. And he was like, well, if you don't have pain, I don't know if it works. And then he just kind of did it. And I was thinking to myself, he just injected me and didn't really even listen to what I told him when he was kind of checking me in. So I decided I didn't want to go down that route anymore. And it didn't work either. I literally felt sore for a couple days, and then I just felt the same afterwards. There was no improvement. And so I just started kind of looking down the rabbit holes of self-improvement in every way, shape, and form. And I started getting into breath work and meditation. And when you start to look at that kind of stuff, eventually plant-based stuff pops up. And so I decided to try plant-based, but to just rewind a tad, I was keto at this time when all this like came to a head. I was feeling fit, strong, and lean. But the problem was at that time, and I was doing intermittent fasting for years at that point already. I was pretty ahead of the game with that kind of stuff. On the keto, I was doing protein powders, a lot of like salami, tons of cheese. So it was like really dirty. And like my chicken was like chicken breast and chicken thighs. And I was doing bulletproof coffee with a lot of butter and MCT oil. And I was just feeling nauseous after a while. I did it for 8 months, and I felt good at times and I felt strong at times, but I just felt nauseous and didn't feel sustainable to me. And so I was like, well, let's try this plant-based stuff. I watched Forks Over Knives with my wife, and we both decided we wanted to try it out. And I think at first it helped because I think it was more about what I wasn't eating. So I wasn't eating any processed, no more protein powders really at that point, no processed anything. So I think there was an initial reduction in inflammation in my body and kind of a calming down of things a little bit. But then it just kind of never really got any better after that. I'd have days where I felt really good, and then other days where I could feel all my old injuries were kind of still there. And then as I got deeper down the into fasting and yoga, I like took some pretty serious yoga classes from like yogis out of India and did some meditation there, and that seemed to help my back and neck to a large degree. But they were big on vegetarianism, and I mean they didn't preach veganism, but they were big on vegetarianism. They even were saying like in some states they have you eat a lot of ghee, a lot of cow fat, and it's necessary. And so I started eating more eggs and ghee, and I noticed an improvement. But one thing that never improved and only got worse when I did vegan plant-based for 5 years, and just all the vegans want to tell you did it wrong. But I mean, I took the Cornell plant-based nutrition class. I followed all the top vegan docs because I didn't know what I was doing, and I wanted to feel good and I wanted to heal. So I wanted to like do it right. And I tried like all the main guys kind of styles, and I was just bloated. I was always hungry, never felt satisfied. I got leaner. My LDL dropped a ton. Like all that stuff did happen. But after a while, I got a muscle tear in my shoulder that never seemed to heal. And then I got another tear in my abdomen that just wouldn't get better. And it started to really kind of limit what I could do. And I tried, rounds of stronger anti-inflammatories. I tried some injectable healing peptides that, people swear by, like they use in veterinary medicine. They're not like totally safe for human consumption, like BPC 157 and TB 500. I tried those several times and, never really felt those injuries resolve. And I started to lose all of this monk-like self-control I had over just junk food like cookies and ice cream. My wife would eat that stuff in front of me for years and I wouldn't eat it. And I got that discipline when I was keto. And so I thought to myself, well, let's get that discipline back. Let me try a ketogenic diet again. It's time for a change. I'm not feeling great doing this. I've had gas and bloating the whole time. It's just gotten worse. So like, let's just change it up. And then at this point, I've seen keto stuff, and like I saw the whole Sean Baker, Joe Rogan thing years ago, and kind of was like, this guy's nuts. But he kept popping up, and I kept seeing more and more carnivore people saying how great they're feeling on it. And I said, well, I'm a scientific minded guy, but I also believe anecdote is what kind of compels more rigorous scientific discovery. So without the anecdote, and are you even going to test something to begin with? So when I hear the oh, trust the science, like, anecdote's not science. It's not science, but it should be the beginning of science. The anecdote should inform where we look, is what I think. So I was like, one of my mantras has always been, I don't believe or disbelieve anything that's not in my firsthand experience. And even then, I'm willing to take another look, because who knows what kind of biases I might have viewed things through. So I'm always willing to re-examine. And so I didn't want carnivore to work, but I was like, I'm just going to try it. It sounds easier. But part of me, because of the whole yoga discipline I had come from too, I was like invested in vegetarian working for me. But I was like, you know what? I just got to try it. I just got to try it, or else I really don't know. And so I tried it, and on day 4, all the pain in my body was gone. And I was like, are you kidding me? Literally took 4 days. I dropped 10 pounds in 4 days. So that told me my body just released so much inflammation. And I'm not under any illusions in 4 days that I'm healed, but like, I feel so good. And I had done a lot of juice fasting in the past. I did like a 38-day juice, John Rose style juice feast, where you're drinking like your caloric needs and fruit juice and vegetable juice every day, and you're supplementing with a little flaxseed oil so your gallbladder doesn't shut down. So I tried that. I did water fasting up to 5 days several times. And so I think, and I've been doing intermittent fasting for years. So I think, I felt sluggish for about a week and a half, and it wasn't that bad. And I had some headaches, but, I felt good other than that. And then I noticed so I wear a Fitbit, and I noticed that my resting breath rate went from an average of about 13 breaths a minute to 35. So I was like, and my blood pressure started to skyrocket. And this was around day 5 or 6. And then I added some electrolytes in, and that all normalized right away. Oh yeah. So the inflammation just kind of disappeared so quickly, and I was just blown away. So immediately I was like, all right. And it's easy. Like, I'm eating, so, I started off eating a lot of eggs, a lot of ground beef, and ribeyes. And because, I'm trying the high fat, and I'm doing, I was also doing a lot of Greek yogurt with a little bit of honey and berries. So I was trying that also, and not every day with the berries and yogurt, but it was a nice little kind of sweet treat. And I wouldn't have to put that much berries or honey in it for it to feel like a sweet treat. And I do have the kind of, like, once I'm into eating like this, from my past experience, I am the type where I can have like a bite of a cookie, and then I just want to taste, and that's okay. And so, but I was, for probably 3 months, I was really strict with just the eggs, ground beef, ribeye, and water. And then I got element electrolytes. It's taking fish oil, vitamin D3, occasionally Shilajit, which is like a mineral supplement. And then also, I take a multivitamin that had like some magnesium and potassium and other things, vitamin C. I was like, might as well cover the basis a little bit, just to kind of be cautious, I guess. And so what I noticed in that 3 months was, if I backed off on the elements or the electrolyte stuff, I would start to feel a little cramp develop in my lower leg. And so I've been kept at that. And then at around the 3-month mark, we took a trip to Mexico, and I wasn't sure how I was going to eat. And I knew it was going to be a lot of all you can eat, all inclusive at the resort we were at. And I was with my wife and daughter. And I just, my wife's like, you're not going to let this diet like ruin the vacation, are you? I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. I'm sure I can eat like ketogenic style there pretty easily. I'll make it work. And, I just resigned myself to maybe I won't feel as good, but, I'm just going to be on vacation, have a good time, and not try to stress myself out over it. And for the most part, it was really easy. Like, it was like dirty carnivore for the most part. And then I had some bites of desserts. One night, my stomach got a little upset, and, I had a bout on the bathroom where I felt really bad for about 30 minutes and almost like sweating. And then that kind of was over. And then after that, I kind of felt like I had an iron gut for the rest of the trip. But at most, I would have 200 grams of carbs, and most of it was from fruit. I had some chips with some like ceviche with fresh caught fish out of the sea, and I was eating tons of eggs and a lot of pork because they had a lot of pork, and then a lot of little whatever beef stew stuff they had, and it worked. And I felt really good on the vacation. We were walking like 30,000 steps a day. And and I'm doing, and so this whole time I've been doing also been doing like push-ups and pull-ups again, and doing resistance band training. I have this special little system, and so on the trip I was still doing my push-ups and pull-ups and just doing tons of walking, and I felt really, really good. And I would feel a little sluggish after the chips some days in Mexico when we got back from Mexico. And I jumped right back into being more strict. And then we have my wife and I have a good friend group here in Southern California. And, we've been going to a friend's house, and they have a nice pool in the backyard on the weekends. And we'll barbecue up a lot of steaks, but there's also ceviche and chips. And on those days, I eat a little bit of fruit, a little bit of chips, and it's like once a week. And some days I'm cleaner than others on those like fun weekend kind of get-togethers. But for the most part during the week, I'm real strict, and like a lot of times I'll eat like, it sounds nuts, but I like to eat one meal a day. I'll do like 10 eggs and a ribeye, and then with a lot of butter, and then that's all I'll eat unless I'm hungry, and then maybe I'll eat something later and I usually eat around between noon and 2. Seems to be like a sweet spot for me, unless I go surfing. I started surfing again, and because my body feels really good. And what I've noticed is, like as a lot of the inflammation has calmed down, I was like, well, are the structural issues underneath the inflammation going to improve? And I wasn't sure if that was going to happen. And it seems like the structural things are improving over time. And I have been continuously getting stronger and exercising and feeling good. But I'm also, if I feel like I'm a little injured one day, I rest. And the interesting thing is, now when I rest, I heal so fast. I feel like if I tweak anything or something's a little sore, I take a day off and stretch, and like the next day I feel good to go again. And it's like, I haven't felt that kind of health in I don't know how long. And it's hard to, if I have a feeling I'm going to be a lean mass hyper responder, and it's hard to think that having high LDL, when you just feel objectively this good and you can do things you weren't able to do months ago, and your energy is better in every way, and you have mental clarity. Oh, the mental clarity is amazing. And I thought I had mental clarity from the yoga I did in the meditation, but this just like took things to a whole other level. And actually, I know I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place, but that reminds me of like the mental clarity. I really noticed it and when I surf, because I surf in a spot where there's a lot of wannabe up and coming professionals, a lot of retired surfing professionals. So it's a really competitive lineup, and the surfing level is high there, and they can be not very friendly if you get in their way or if they don't recognize you. And I've been surfing there for probably 20 years, and I've made a lot of friends, but I'm still a transplant by some of their standards, some of the guys who grew up there and went to high school there. And so, but I have a good group of guys that I know that I've surfed out there for years that are like kind of super local status. So they tolerate me, and I get plenty of good waves. But what I noticed is there's a lot of situations where, especially in a bigger day, you have to make a split-second decision. You've got a guy about 3 feet to your right, a guy 5 feet to your right, and a guy on a board a couple guys on boards coming down the face of a wave, and you got to like kind of calculate where you need to go to be safe and like get out of people's way and then just try not to get hurt. And I just notice I make those decisions so much calmer, so much faster, with so much less energy than it used to take me. And I've been surfing for close to 40 years. And like I feel like the increase in my decision making in those stressful moments have jumped so much. It's just incredible. Like and I also noticed even through my meditation practice and definitely feeling a lot of me being able to let go of a lot of things and just let a lot of things slide off my back that I wasn't able to in the past. The meat took that to a whole new level also, because I remember, in the past when I'd be sitting in the water, if there was guys kind of not taking turns, which is definitely an etiquette in a system of kind of how turns work out there, and some guys disregard it, and then there's a lot of other dangerous behaviors that you're not supposed to do. And I was the type to like, I would have to say something about it eventually to someone, and then like I would sometimes start shouting at people, and it was kind of aggressively, and it's not something I'm proud of, but that was part of the surf culture. And in a way, it definitely polices some spots and makes some dangerous spots a little safer, because people know if you kind of step out of line here, there's going to be consequences. But at the same time, I feel like I've learned how to navigate all of that, or it just not even learned. I just navigate through all of that with a lot less stress. I don't care as much. And there was an instance the other day where some guy tried to test me and not take turns, and I didn't need to say anything to him, and I wasn't hostile towards him. I just it was kind of my turn, and the wave was coming, but he paddled hard to get in a little bit better positioning than me, but he went on the wave before. So it's like, no, you don't get to go 2 times in a row. I didn't say anything to him. I just dropped it on him and went. And then like I wasn't mad at him when I paddled back out. And then after that, he didn't try that kind of stuff with me. And it was totally calm. And it was just me subtly kind of like enforcing a boundary. And it wasn't like, hey, bro, you got to share aggressive. There was none of that. And it was like, wow, this is so much more pleasant. So it's so much more enjoyable. Like, there's etiquette happening, and, but it's, yeah. So it was really, and I've also noticed that same calmness and just more opportunities to react differently, and seeing the different reactions around my family. Like, I feel like I'm a better husband. I feel like I'm a better father. I have more energy just to do whatever needs to be done for the family. And I used to spend so much time trying to figure out my health, where I probably wasn't the best, partner. But now I feel like I have time to go surf, and I can still come home and make food for the family and get work done. And it's like, I used to, yeah, I used to spend so much time trying to figure out how to feel good, where now I just feel good. And it's like, I exercise, maybe I do my strength training is only 15 minutes a day, but it works because I go one set to failure with these bands. It works really well for me. And then I do some stretching in the evening. And then when I do my yoga, I wake up early. And so I'm able to, get everything in that I like to get in, and still be there for the family and have tons of energy and attention to them. And I also feel like a lot of the older habitual stuff that, scrolling on my phone, all that kind of stuff, I seem to have more awareness and control over, just as I seem calmer and just more, I think I see objective truth a little bit better, and I'm more willing to just accept it for what it is. There's like that less of that instant resistance you get when you're out of alignment a little bit, and you're still kind of doing something. Sometimes it takes a little longer to course correct, but like I feel like now that course correction happens a lot faster and a lot more naturally. So it's just been better in every way.
And that's awesome. Yeah, that you just described there. It's is it almost like a feeling of you're less likely to be like, oh, but I don't like it this way. I'm like internally, I want it to be this way. But now it's more of an easy kind of, okay, well, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. And even if I'm right, like there's times with my wife where it's like, she's a reasonable woman, but when she gets mad, it's like that's not the time to start talking logic with her. And now it's like, I could let her be mad. Like the other day, I pulled the dog out of the car, and his leash kind of grabbed the coffee that was sitting next to her and it spilled it over her. And like I flustered her, and she didn't have some like she said some stuff to me, and she's like, "You should have just let me do it." And then like I didn't say anything. I was like, "Oh, I'd be bummed." I was thinking in my head, I'd be bummed too if I just got coffee spilled on me, whatever. But and like and later on, my wife's like, "You didn't try to like come back at me or anything," and she's like, "And I was talking pretty harsh to you," and like, yeah, I just didn't really feel the need to. It's like, I knew you're upset, and I knew I had a hand, and even it was totally unintentional because the leash was caught, and I just was like, well, and I knew like in the past it was something that either one of us could have easily let ruin our day together, but it just kind of happened, and we moved on, and it was like, all right. And then there's times when it's like, yeah, sometimes I know that I'm right about something, but it doesn't matter. And then there's other times where, because maybe there's, and the times when I'm wrong about something, there's less of that, like, that maybe an embarrassment that you're wrong and you didn't do it right. And there's that resistance to admit like wrongdoing on your part. That's just gone now. It's like, oh, you did this. Yeah, I did do that, didn't I? That wasn't very. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for pointing it out to me. Where in the past, maybe there would have been a little bit more like, well, you did this instead, and so it's good.
Yeah, that's really interesting because we often look at it from the perspective of, when I'm right, I can hold back. But yeah, there is that other thing where, you know, you maybe you're wrong, you're wrong, and you're less likely to try and kind of bluster your way through it or defend yourself in some way, like, oh yeah, but there's a reason I'm wrong. Here's the context, or here's the, I don't know, the excuse or something like that, right? It's more, everything's
Yeah,
more zen.
yeah. And then when I'm wrong, it's like the quicker I can admit to that I'm wrong, I can figure out why I'm wrong and what would help me be more right in the future. And that's kind of how I even found carnivore, was that willingness to like, the meditation and yoga kind of really started to cultivate that willingness to kind of, that need almost to regularly look at myself like, what if I'm the asshole? What if I'm the problem in everything? Let's take ultimate responsibility. And one of the things that I kind of struck up on early on is like, most people can't control their reactions to situations, yet they get mad at how other people react to them. And that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so when I started to gain a little bit of control over my reactions to other people, it gave me even more grace to like let them react how they need to react. And, a lot of times it's not about you and the way they're reacting at you. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And it's like, if you always take it personally, then you're not going to get to the root of the situation if you're always taking things personally. So it's like, um and then like I said, when the inflammation dropped out of my body and the electrolytes balanced out and I started to feel more energy and everything, it really felt like all of my yoga was better, all of my exercise was better, all of my mental health was better, and even my flexibility. I had yoga gurus tell me, 5 days on a water fast and you'll be so flexible, and then you eat a lot of whole foods, a lot of raw vegan foods in your diet, like 50%, and you'll notice a lot of flexibility. And I noticed, when I'm on all meat, my flexible gets way better. I'm so much more flexible now than I was when I was eating vegan and vegetarian. I had moments in those diets where my inflammation came down, but I was doing so many purifying practices to maintain that, and it was just never long-term sustained. And the amount of yoga and meditation I would have to do to even taste those kind of states was a lot. And now I feel like um, it takes a lot less to have me feeling really, really good. And that's just a bonus to me because, if your car's in the shop, like 2 weeks out of the month, that's not a very good car. So if like I require all that maintenance just so I can function at a adequate level, that's not ideal. So I'm trying to like, I want to feel great, and I'm still love meditation and yoga, but at the same time, I don't want to have to do it all the time just to maintain that kind of taste of better living, that like kind of more Zen type of states that I've experienced. And in the carnivore diet, like I almost have to say, like if you learn a really authentic, good meditation from a real yogi, I really feel like there's a real energetic transfer that happens, and you can really experience states of like what they would call Christ consciousness. I think all of that is possible, and I feel like I've tasted that. I feel like you can also have those transcendental experiences on your own, completely drug free, without the help of a guru, because I've experienced them before. I've had moments where, I just let go so much, and I was, when I was really, really, really broken, I had a huge kind of come to Jesus moment where I went from an atheist to a believer just because I was so blissed out for no reason. And it was only after months of just brutal honesty with myself, and then all of a sudden I had this huge like kind of awakening where I felt so electric and so happy. And then that would come and go regardless of kind of how much I was suffering with my physical health and my mental health when it was at its worst at about 30. That's when I was 38. I'm 47 now, and I'm pretty close to like my best like leanness and muscularity I've ever had. I'm like 180 right now, and I'm adding in a little bit of fasting days here and there. I just haven't felt the need or want to fast since I started carnivore. I really felt like my body was just soaking up the nutrients because I was doing a lot of body recomp where it would be, I was 185 and kind of soft and fluffy around the middle, and then I dropped down to 175, and then I've been bouncing between like 179 and 182, and just continually getting a little bit leaner looking. So, but yeah, it's just been a whole systemic improvement, and it not just physically, just in just how I've been experiencing life in general, in every way, shape, and form, and it really seems to be in congruence with the yoga and meditation. The interesting thing is, I had the good fortune of having access to a really well-known Ayurvedic doctor, and I just kind of asked her. I said, "What do you think about meat and eggs and everything?" And she said, "Honestly, I think we teach the vegetarianism and veganism partly because of India's population, and just kind of it's kind of maybe some dogma, and but there are some good things to it." But she also says, if you eat meat and eggs and you honor it like Native Americans did, and you do your blessings before, and you really live in that knowing that all of this is divine creation, then what's the difference really? If you respect your food with the greatest reverence and respect, and you're so grateful for it, it's going to do good things in your body. And I totally, so far, that seems to be true. And it just, I'm not like the type to just blindly follow. I plan on getting blood tests, and if my doctor pushes back, I'm going to use that to see if will order me imaging. But I am through Kaiser, and so I definitely know they have a very scripted kind of way they deal with everything. And so, my wife and I are considering looking into alternative primary health care, going on, our medical coverage is coming up for renewal. So we think it might be time to maybe look somewhere else, maybe more of a naturopath who would have a little bit more of an understanding of what I'm trying to do here. And so, yeah.
So actually, on that point, is your wife kind of moving closer to this way of eating, or?
She's a big sugar junkie, and she is. She likes filet, which isn't very fatty. So I do feed her my ribeyes, and if I cut them up real small pieces and don't give her any real too much fatty in it, she enjoys that, but she still prefers filet, but you know, she'll eat the ribeye if I feed it to her. And then she loves pork ribs. And so I've been making her pork ribs, and it's definitely, I think it's improving her overall health and well-being, because you know, she doesn't have as much of the hunger signals for the junk food. She still likes the junk food. It's my daughter that it's kind of hard because she tries to be more plant-based. I have her eating eggs and butter, but she's 15 and a half, and I'm just trying to let her see. She's seen my whole journey, so it's like, and I try to be real honest with her, but I try to be gentle with her too, because I know how sensitive we are about our food. And she's vegetarian. Probably it was hard to get her to eat meat when she was little, but I think when we went vegetarian, it was like she wanted to do it too, and especially she loves animals. And so I'm still trying to navigate all of that. I feel she's an athlete, and I think she gets injured a little more than she should, and I think that's probably diet related. So I'm trying to steer her towards eating more eggs and maybe experimenting more, but I'm on probably ending month 4 is about where I'm at. So this is all still new in my family. And so, I need to be patient with her and just really try to lead by example, really, because, it's ultimately her life. And if I force her to do anything, I don't think it's going to work. It's just going to drive a rift. And I just have to be loving and patient and supportive. And I tell her like I see things, and I ask her what her goals are, and I give her my opinion on what I think are, the best way to achieve those goals. I tell her maybe things to think about if I think those goals maybe aren't, the best, or maybe if have you thought about this? If you want to do this, have you thought about, I try to do all that. And I also really have always tried to be very accountable to her. If I've ever reacted and been harsh with her, make sure to apologize. And I've never been the type to say, because I told you so. So we have a good relationship. It's still at 15 and a half. She still likes to hang out. And, our time in the car, we talk a lot. And we've had a couple good conversations about diet. And that's how I even got her to start eating eggs and butter and to begin with. So we're making progress. And she's a good kid, and she's works really hard. And it's hard to watch her though, because one of the reasons why I would love her to try more carnivore is because these kids are under a lot of mental stress, and like all the kids in her school, it's a rigorous private school, and the reason why we sent her there is they were the first to open through lockdowns, and they were the first to say they weren't going to mandate vaccination. And so my wife has a gene mutation, and we weren't gonna rush out and get a vaccine when she had some cancer gene mutation. So and I got COVID early, and I handled it very easily. So to me it was like, well, we're pretty healthy and we have a reason to be cautious, so let's be cautious. And because of that, school was kind of more willing to entertain those ideas, we started going to school there. But these kids, man, they're so kind of what was expected from an honors kid when I was growing up compared to now. It's crazy. It's crazy. I feel so bad for these kids, because I'm like, they don't have the time to have fun. It's like they're expected to be serious, like so much more serious with a huge workload. And so I know that meat fueled, the meat and eggs and butter, you get so much done so quick, and the stress is just it's not the same. You handle it so much better. And I feel like I'm just kind of joyfully cruising through different things that need to get done. It's like, I get excited when I have hard chores to do now. It's like I used to kind of dread stuff, and now it's like, oh, we just got to figure it out. So
It's
yeah.
interesting. It's interesting that that changes, that you really feel like you're almost compelled to work or compelled to move, right?
It is. It's like I feel it's great. Why am I going to waste it and not do stuff? It's like life life is being fully. I really feel like one of the purposes of life, maybe the only purpose in life, is to be completely involved in whatever it is you're doing. and not attached to it though, but like when you're doing it, do it like all in. And when you're all in something and then you do everything like that, then things you do are bound to bear a different kind of fruit than if you half-ass everything. And so, I don't always achieve that standard, but that's definitely something that I strive for. And I feel like it happens more and more the longer I'm eating like this. And, like I said, I'm not super strict. Like on the weekends, I get on usually one day a week. Um, I have maybe up to 150 grams of carbs of like some chips with like fresh ceviche, which I don't know if what that if that's a common thing where you are, but that's like a Mexican style fish. It's like shrimp and white fish that they usually boil really quick and then they finish off in like citrus acid, and it's delicious. It's and they season it with like some usually some tomatoes and maybe some jalapeno and like onion, like salsa type of and it's just really tasty, really delicious way to eat fish, and it's traditionally served with like fresh tortilla chips. So that's one of my Achilles heels. So, on my cheat day, I'll pound down some chips eating that ceviche, and I never feel as good after I eat it, but it doesn't wreck me. I don't have super painful digestion unless I kind of start to go over that 150 grams of carbs mark. Then I start to notice I pay a little bit more of a price. But I would say generally, I seem to tolerate, some Brussels sprouts every now and then. I'll pop some in my mouth when I make some for my daughter, but I'm not eating a whole bunch of them like I used to. And, I maybe like half a cup of blueberries in my yogurt with some honey, maybe 3-4 times a week now. I seem to tolerate that just fine. I do notice that when I go like more towards the lion diet, I feel my best. But you know, I do enjoy eating the other things, and I feel really good eating them. So it's kind of like I feel like I know these levers I can manipulate now, depending on if I'm feeling injured or feeling like my health needs an extra boost, then I'm going to lean towards more lion diet, shorter eating windows, and fasting. And then if I'm feeling good and want to enjoy life a little bit more, and it's not wrecking me, then I'm going to do a little bit of the blueberries and honey because I enjoy it.
Mm.
So
I think that's kind of a good place to be. That's where, because everyone's going to be a little bit different,
right.
and finding where you can get to that kind of balance point is really important.
Totally. And like I didn't come from, I probably think towards the end I was probably approaching pre-diabetic, maybe because of my weight, but maybe not because I still kept eating windows. I was still intermittent fasting, but I just, even when I would eat one meal a day and I was eating lower, it just seemed like my body wasn't handling carbs as well as it used to when I was eating a lot of that. And and yeah, now, but so the point being, I was never like 100 pounds overweight or 200 pounds overweight. I never had full blown diabetes. I was never on tons of medication. At times I was taking, a lot of NSAIDs, like the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. I've done some harder cycles of steroid or like steroid medication for some of my injuries that weren't healing, like my abdomen and my shoulder. And then I did the peptide injections and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, like I wasn't taking any pharmaceuticals long term. I would try an intervention to see if it would improve my situation, and usually I felt about the same. And then now, I don't take anything except I still am taking like I said, D3 fish oil, and I take my multivitamin because, I don't know. It has a bit of potassium, magnesium, and some other stuff that I think maybe would be good to have. But I feel really, really good. I have tons of energy. I sleep really well, although sleep was never too bad for me. Sometimes I did have an issue staying up too late, but pretty comfortably. I go to bed around anywhere between 9:30 is like super early for me, but up to 11:30, and I get up between 5:30 and 6:30 every morning. and I feel good. I'm never tired during the day, even if I didn't get as much sleep that night. I feel like once I'm up and moving, like I'm good. And yeah, I really feel like every aspect of what I was already doing has gotten better. And it's like you said, like I feel like I need to be doing more now, because like there's just times where I'm like, okay, I've done all the stuff I was thinking I could do, but like, what now? And like I'm totally comfortable sitting in stillness from the meditation and yoga, but I would sit in that stillness to help cultivate that calm. But now I have that calm, so I feel like I should use that calm energy to do something good.
Mm. Yeah, I for me it always feels like this kind of energy of like what's next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were giving a friend advice about how to get started with carnivore and be successful with it, what would you tell them?
I would probably ask them like how kind of what their level of sugar addiction was, and then depending on their answer, I would press them a little bit more to get a better idea. Honestly, I felt like I've eaten every diet at this point, and I kind of know how they function. And I feel like I could coach anyone on any diet to a point. And just because I've been a big N-of-1 experiment for 15 years or more, and I would start by saying, if you're really carb addicted, and you might want to try ketogenic style first, where you don't have to just go cold turkey. But if you're the type of personality that once they decide to do something, you just go all in and you've got that ability to just suffer through it, then I would say rip the Band-Aid off and just go full carnivore and see how you do. And like, you know, don't just watch videos. Watch a lot of carnivore videos, but don't just watch carnivore videos that talk about all the good things that happen. I scour the internet for all the bad things that happen to people and all of like the people who had trouble. I want to know who those people are, what their background was, and what they were doing, because it informs me going forward. And I'm not saying they did it wrong or they're not or they're lying or whatever. I just want information, and like it's good to listen to all like the carnivore cured me stuff for like motivation to do it, but it's good to listen to all the I was having trouble going to the bathroom, all this kind of stuff. So when you like for me, when like my resting heart rate started soaring, my blood pressure started going up, and I had cramping, it's like, well, that's a pretty common one. So I found that out with the electrolytes, and that seemed to help. But I'm gonna keep kind of keeping track of how people are doing, and just the troubles they have if they pop up, and what they were doing and what they did to fix it. So I have an idea if these things kind of come into my purview, then I'm not like blindsided, and I might have an idea what to try. So be open. If you got the discipline, go for it. If you're really coming from years of heavy carb addiction, um, you might do better starting in keto and then moving closer and closer to carnivore, and maybe not. But it's something to think about. Definitely, like I definitely think there are people that get a lot of benefit from just doing keto. I think it's a harder diet to follow personally. And especially if you're very carb addicted, then keto, it's really, I think, really quick for the really carb addicted people to just, so yeah, I don't know. It's, I think it's good. It can be a good transition, but like if you have the willpower, just do it. And then don't be
Mm.
afraid to, once you've been feeling good for a while, I would say try adding stuff back in, and just see how it feels. Just inform yourself, and just know that by doing that, you might have some rough nights. You might have an upset stomach, or might not feel your best, and then don't be afraid to like admit that if you're doing the carnivore and you're not feeling great for some reason, yeah, like this isn't feeling great. Well, why? Like what could possibly be going on here? Because I think you need to do this. Yeah, I don't think just having faith is the way to go. I think you need to you need to acknowledge that everyone comes from different levels of damage in their body, and everyone has different tolerances and different chemical exposures that may affect how you function in different gene mutations. And so, like, you may have a similar experience to most people, but then you might have a lot of little nuances that are kind of unique to your specific physiology, that you might have to do things a little different. Like, I notice if I do any cream or butter coffees, even if it's just like a tablespoon of butter, not that much, and then I account for it in my calories later, like, it just stops my weight loss. And if I go too much liquid fat, like, my digestion, I get diarrhea. You know, I go poop fine every day, but then if I do too much fat, I get the diarrhea and I get nauseous. And like, for me, eating eggs with butter, cooked in butter, and then eating the ribeyes and the ground beef cooked in butter seems to be a perfect amount of, like, I don't really count I'm eating like 80-20 ground beef, or maybe it was like 70-70-30. It's like the Wagyu from Costco right now that I've been eating. And it's like, yeah, that seems like a perfect fat ratio for me. And then I know, like, tons of women, like, they seem like they can't get enough fat. They'll eat butter and then they'll still be dropping weight, but that's just not me. And the other thing I did was I did a little bit of like, the steak and butter gang talked about priming. And so I did about 2 weeks of priming where I forced myself to eat a couple times a day, because I was having trouble finishing a ribeye when I started, and I knew that was just on the calorie standpoint. That's just way under calorie for me, and I don't necessarily buy into calorie in, calorie out. I feel like it's not exact. I feel like calories matter, but it's not the whole picture. It definitely, even if you're eating fat, even if you're fat adapted, and I will say that probably at 3 months in, I felt even more fat adapted than I was at like a month and feeling good. All of a sudden I noticed my energy seemed to tick up another notch for whatever reason. So I don't know if that's going to keep happening or what. I feel like I still have some leaning out to do to be at kind of my ideal weight, but I'm not like doing this to try to lean out by any time frame. I'm just eating intuitively and like going off how I feel and steadily progressing towards improved health. And I know that leaning out a little bit more, I can just see it on my body and how I've carried it in the past. And it's not, I have a six pack, but I carry most of my weight on my back and my love handles, so I can be in the 18% body fat range and still have a visible six pack. So I'm lucky in that regard. But I can feel it when I surf. Every 2-3 pounds is a noticeable difference about like how stable my board feels when I'm on my feet, and then how quickly I can get from a laying on my stomach paddling position to pop up to on my feet. So every little bit of weight makes a big difference. And then how easy it is to catch a wave if you're like heavier and your board's not floating you as much. It takes more energy to paddle into a wave. So I think about 3 to 4 more pounds, and I think I'd probably be an ideal kind of weight for my surfboards and just my frame in general. But yeah.
Nice. So, Shane, is there a way people can reach out to you? Do you have a website or a YouTube or social media?
I mean, I don't really. I mean, I'll give my email. It's just shaneonsacks@hotmail.com. And like sax as in saxophone, SAX. So Shane ON. So I was a Shane ON sax, Shane on sax. So I was a saxophone professional musician for years, and I just kind of put that aside when I had my kid, because it's a traveling life if you're really doing it and making money. And there's a select few cities where you can do it and not travel so much, but it's just not a very family friendly career. And so when I met my wife and we had our kid, I'd already done it for quite a while at that point, and I just kind of hung it up. But so yeah, Shane on Sax at Hotmail. I'm thinking about kind of starting more digital presence. I kind of, I have a Facebook. It's just Shane Baird on Facebook. And, I used to kind of argue with people about politics and all this kind of stuff, but I just, no one ever listens to each other over texts on a social media app. And so I kind of stopped doing all that and just try to see which way the culture is going. And then, part of me is like feeling maybe I'm coming to a place where I need to start sharing more information. Because for a long time, I thought I had an idea maybe I would, I'm going to get healthy eating this plant-based diet. Maybe I'll help people get healthy, and then I'll get healthy doing this yoga. And I never felt totally healthy. So I'm like, yeah, I've made improvements. In some ways are better, some ways are worse. But I just like, who am I? I'm in no health authority right now. I have tons of issues still. And so I never really felt like sharing a bunch because I just didn't feel like I had arrived yet. And for the first time in my life, probably more I feel like I'm more qualified now than I ever have been to maybe start sharing some information just because I've made all the mistakes. That's the only reason why. It's because I'm dumb. I learned everything the hard way. You can tell me something a million times, but unless I make the mistake, it doesn't sink into me as much. And 47 years later, and just I kind of had my what I call my spiritual awakening maybe 7, 8 years ago, and it's I was always an empathetic guy, but I also viewed myself lived in a victim mindset a little bit for sure, and my health was never where I wanted it to be, and then probably when I had my awakening, that victim stuff just kind of all went away, and I became way more just brutally. I just want the brutal truth. I don't care if I'm right. I just want to know what the truth is, and it's really kind of set me on this path. That's why I'm here. It's what led me to where I am here, and it's there's been painful moments for sure, but it has improved the quality of my life in every facet. Since my relationships are better, I feel better. My ability to work is better. Everything is better. So it's time to maybe start sharing that a little bit more, and just knowing that I've tried it all. I've tried vegan. I tried keto. You know, and I feel like I could help people. So I think it's time to start speaking out more, like you're doing. It's great because you know we're being fed so much propaganda, and I heard Jordan Peterson say something. I think it was Jordan Peterson, and it kind of sums up my feelings on people like Joe Rogan, where it's like I don't expect these people to be right about everything all the time, but I expect the people that I consume media from, to be dedicated to telling the truth to the best of their ability. And I feel like I can tell the difference when someone's trying to sell me a narrative versus when someone's allowing me the grace to ask questions and try to understand something. And that's what rubbed me the wrong way about the COVID response. Was like, I'm science-minded, engineer-minded person. And so to me, trust the science meant asking questions, and meant it was okay to be wrong about things and then like reformulate your hypothesis. But the minute I was told that I couldn't ask questions, like that set off red flags. And then when I saw people that were talking to the people that were asking questions and how they were being treated, I guess that was another level of awakening for me, just an intellectual awakening, just to see kind of how things operated. So like I would much rather listen to Joe Rogan be wrong about something than listen to MSNBC lie to me about something.
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments. Anything that can't be questioned should not be trusted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I'll put your email address in the show notes. And Shane, look, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave, and I appreciate you. I've watched tons of your interviews, and it's been very helpful. I've learned a lot of things to look out for because, we all make the mistakes on this journey, and then your little shorts are always good too. And I really appreciate the way that you do your interviews because you definitely let the personalities tell their story, and the stories are powerful. They are because, online over text, it's really easy for someone who's entrenched in a dogma to write you off, going, "Oh, you didn't do it right, or you didn't try fasting, or this is only because you're eating one meal a day now and you're fasting." It's like, no, I tried all of that stuff. I really, I tried it all because I wanted to know the truth, and here we are.